This is Andy Fishburn, and welcome to the Beach Volleyball Hall of Fame. Well, I had the good fortune of, my family was members of a private beach club in Santa Monica. It's called the Beach Club. And there was a history of beach volleyball down there. There were a lot of players when I was a kid that I learned from. And you know, it was a tradition for many years. In fact, the Beach Club, I think, is credited for being one of the original places that people played two-man beach volleyball. A guy named Paul Johnson, I think, is credited with starting the two-man game, and he was a member of our Beach Club. It goes back to like 1923. So there was a tradition for many, many years, and there were some great old players like Les Meisenheimer and Jack Power and Paul and John Meek and some of these guys that were kind of my mentors. The biggest inspirations for me, I have to say, I don't remember really having any. I remember being a kid down there, growing up, playing with all my buddies, and I don't remember actually having a mentor. That being said, when I finally kind of graduated from the Beach Club and moved over to State Beach, which was right next door, that was the mecca of beach volleyball, right there. There was so much going on. I mean, you had everybody and his brother trying to excel at volleyball on those courts. And when I finally got over there, there was a guy, believe it or not, named Daryl Rucco. And we used to call him the Rock. And he was the most powerful looking guy. And I was intimidated by him at first. Turns out he's just a sweetheart. But he was kind of the embodiment, the epitome of beach volleyball for me at the time, believe it or not. Because I don't think he ever necessarily did that well in any of the tournaments. But State Beach had all these characters, and I looked at them and I said, you know what? I think I can do that. I think I can compete with these guys. And that's kind of how everything started for me. Ratings in beach volleyball are really confusing, but I think the most meaningful one at the time was when you got your AAA, which means you kind of graduated into the big leagues. And the guy that I earned my AAA with, I think most players would actually laugh at. His name was Eric Macias. The Big E, they called him. And we played in the San Diego AA against a couple of guys, Jennings, I think, and Pomeroy. They were there. I'm pretty sure that's who that was. And I just remember being so hungry and wanting to win that so badly and get my AAA that I played out of my mind. And that tournament is just a huge imprint in my psyche. Of all the opens that I played in, I would say probably the opponents that we came across the most and was most difficult were St. John and Randy, and maybe St. John and Karch. It seemed like they were the winningest up-and-coming teams, especially Karch, because he was such a young, phenomenal player. But again, it was almost like it depended on how you were doing that weekend. They're all beatable. That's the interesting thing. You come out because you really think you can win. And believe me, if you didn't think you could win, you wouldn't. You'd use up energy or whatever, and you wouldn't make it. The biggest win for me, probably, believe it or not, was Santa Cruz in 1985. Because we had a really controversial 1984 where all the players were going to strike. And I walked the line and ended up playing, and I got a lot of grief for that. But the reality is, I think a lot of the players were all pissed off because we had an easy win in the World Championships in 1984. So 1985 came around, and I was so excited about proving that we should have won in '84 anyway. And my son was born, and 3 days before that tournament, I was goofing around playing with him, and I caught my fingernail in a door and ripped my fingernail off 3 days before the tournament started. And I was really upset. And it turned out I ended up getting xylocaine shots in my finger and had it all wrapped up. And when the Santa Cruz Open started, I just played as steady as I could possibly do and we were able to come all the way through and win the whole damn thing. And because of the handicap, and because of proving what we had done in '84, I think that was the most meaningful thing. My favorite partner is a tough question because it kind of depended on the timing. I first started playing and winning with Fred Sturm, who was a wonderful guy. He was like a trainer. He was so rigorous about how he wanted to play, and he taught me a lot about discipline on the court. And then I played and won tournaments with Dane Selznick. And Dane was probably one of the most controversial characters on the court because he could really piss people off with his antics. But the hard part about that for the other players was they knew he was really good at the same time. So Dane and I think Dane would be my favorite partner just because when he and I were playing together and on, we were pretty much unstoppable. There's so many great beaches on the volleyball circuit. It was ridiculous. And we were kind of the center stage for all of them. I think my favorite, probably the Laguna Open. The Laguna Open was just this incredibly historic, incredibly popular tournament. Very tight venue. The crowd's hanging right over the lines. Guys are guzzling Cuervo at the same time the tournament's going on. Everyone is so into the culture. And we won that tournament a couple of times. I think that was just very memorable. But there were so many great tournaments. They were all great beaches. We were like kings of the court. And, young people coming up, I see a lot of these guys spending time in the gym and doing workouts and stuff. I was always a big proponent of just playing the game. Play as much as you possibly can. Learn all the skills. Learn how to improvise. Play against as many different players as you can so you can be, the key is to know the strengths and weaknesses of your opponents. And to do that, you got to play and play and play. And I would always advocate playing over anything else. Just play as much as you can. Oh, I just want to say, beach volleyball, I wasn't really part of the mainstream that much, except by my play. But God, there are so many great guys, and girls too. And I wouldn't trade those memories for anything. I mean, there's so much. I went to high-end schools. I went to Stanford and Yale, and I graduated. My dad said, "What are you doing playing beach volleyball after graduating from these schools?" And I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I'm sure he thought about the money I was supposed to be making at the time. That would come later, and that was fine. So the sport is just a real special jewel in my life.